السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. لعل بعض استطلاعات الرأي الأمريكية الأخيرة بعد جولة ضخمة من الاقتراع وسبر مجموعات التركيز في الولايات المتحدة وبريطانيا حذرت بشدة من أن حروب الووك الثقافية باتت في طريقها لتصبح أكبر خط فاصل في السياسة البريطانية، كما هو الحال بالفعل في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. ثقافة الووك أي ابقى مستيقظا، وهو مصطلح نشأ في الولايات المتحدة أشار في الأصل إلى الوعي بشأن التحيز والتمييز العنصريين، وبعد ذاك أصبح يشمل الوعي بقضايا عدم المساواة الاجتماعية الأخرى مثل التمييز ضد المرأة والملونين، وأيضا فيما يتعلق بالميل الاجتماعي والتوجه الجنسي وسياسات الهوية. يرى المتابعون أنه من خلال ما يسمى بديمقراطية ثقافة الووك هذه ومجتمع الميم وثورات حقوق الإنسان والطوارئ المناخية، عزل الاتحاد الأوروبي من دون مبرر كل من روسيا والصين التي يحتاجها لإنقاذ اقتصاده، واختار إطلاق حرب ثقافة داخلية ضد المجر وبعض دول الاتحاد الأوروبي بسبب إحجامها عن تأييد ثقافة الووك، ولكن بشكل خاص لرفض هذه الدول مشروع الاتحاد الأوروبي للمجتمع المفتوح لاستخدام الهجرة لتخفيف التجانس العرقي. ماذا تعني هذه الحرب الثقافية في أوروبا اليوم؟ وخطوط الصدع بين ثقافة الووك والشعبوية، وكيف تتحول النوايا الليبرالية إلى غير ليبرالية، ولماذا حان الوقت لأخذ هذه الحرب الثقافية داخل أوروبا على محمل الجد بحسب المعنيين. لتفاصيل أوفى حول هذا الموضوع وللإجابة على هذه التساؤلات يطيب لنا أن نستقبل من روما السيد أليستر كروك الدبلوماسي البريطاني السابق، مؤسس ومدير منتدى النزاعات. أهلا بكم إلى حلقة جديدة من الداخل. معكم زينب صفار، تابعونا. Alastair Crooke, Director of Conflicts Forum, formerly a senior British diplomat and advisor on Middle East issues to the EU Foreign Policy Chief, author of Resistance, the Essence of the Islamist Revolution. Welcome to Min Dakhil from the inside, Alastair.
Thank you very much for having me on your program.
Always a pleasure to have you. Pleasure always. Alastair, in talking about Europe's cultural war, how the liberal intent turns illiberal. Why, Alastair, it's about time to take Euro culture war seriously? Why it matters?
Well, because I think some aspects of it seem to be quite innocent and harmless. Of course, the pursuit of justice, the pursuit of an end of racism and things like that, many people sympathize with it. But actually, it's much more serious than that, because really what the woke culture is saying is that the characteristic which define you, your gender, your identity, your history, where you come from, your ethnicity, all of those are no longer attributed to you by your community and characteristics of your community, but they are simply, if you like, now fluid. You can be what gender you choose, you can be what ethnicity you choose, you can change all of these things. But ultimately, what woke says, your color, your identity that is visible defines who you are.
What you look like.
What you look like defines who you are, and that therefore all the success you've had in life, all your achievements are mirage. They're not yours at all. They come from the fact over the last hundreds of years, other people have been denied their opportunities. You've had their opportunities. Therefore, you don't deserve your success, your achievements. And therefore, it's right that they should be removed from you. You should be cancelled and removed and prejudice taken against you. So it's a very profound change that is taking place. It is not just a cultural war. It is, if you like, a rotation of power. It's a power project as well as a cultural war that is taking place to remove one element that has been powerful either in the United States or in Europe, and replace it by another constituency completely. If you like, a liberal, and remove, if you like, people who are white, who are racist, who are called supremacists. Remove them from the seat of power and put in another constituency. In the United States, quite clearly, that constituency is going to be non-white.
Right. We will come to talk about this minute detail, but allow me to ask you, and to stay in Europe with its culturally woke-style democracy, LGBTQI, human rights and climate emergency revolutions, the EU has alienated both Russia and China and has chosen to launch internal culture war against Hungary and various other EU states over their reluctance to endorse woke culture, but more particularly their rejection of the EU Open Society project. Are the EU ruling classes, Alastair, truly blind to these consequences, or do they secretly welcome the war's inherent illiberalism as the tool by which they might found their centralized EU empire?
Well, clearly it is the latter. But I just want to say that, this is not some academic. This is not something that is remote and abstract. The younger generation, even here in Italy, which is not affected as much as the Anglo-Saxon one, you have our children, the children at the school where my children go to school, regard their parents as racist. They regard them as privileged. They don't listen to them anymore. They define their own sense. They say our genders don't matter. So we have many cases. It's become quite fashionable amongst 13 to 15-year-old girls to cut off their breasts, to have them surgically removed, to change their body through chemical treatment, to change it from male to female or female to male. And this is causing a great deal of distress to parents and people everywhere that children are being given this. And what was happening in Hungary is that Hungary was trying to reject this and say, we stand behind the families, we stand by traditional culture. And Brussels will not have it, will not accept it. And they say,
Alastair, excuse me, Hungary is being threatened to be thrown out of the EU to that extent.
Yes, thrown out, and the editorials in Europe by the liberal press are saying, this is what we must stand on, that Hungary has introduced a homosexual, anti-homosexual legislation, and we must fight this. We must throw them out. We must penalize them for this, and other states. The Visegrad Group in Europe, and Poland and other states that still have a traditional culture. Because also the woke doesn't believe in history. It doesn't believe in, if you like, the legacy of the stories that actually bind a human being into his community, that gives him his sense of belonging, if you like. You're becoming liquid. You don't belong to anything. You're just white and privileged, irrespective of your personal qualities, irrespective of your personal stand, doesn't matter. If you're white, you're supremacist, you're racist, etc.
Right. We would like to focus more on this particular liquid modernity, Alastair. US pollster Dr. Frank Luntz, who's a long-time GOP or Republican Party operative, after a mega round of polling and focus group sounding in the US and Britain, he warned bluntly that woke culture wars are on course to become the biggest dividing line in British politics, as they are already in the US, as he cites the deep divides in voter attitudes in the UK as evidence of the contagion coming from America. Might you, sir, explain this in light of the woke populist divide, and what is meant by populism and liquid modernity in this sense, Alastair?
Yes. Well, if you like, the populists are basically sovereigntists. These are the people that believe in traditional society, the values of the family, the values of your own community and your own society. Whereas the woke rejects history completely, rejects any ties to the past. It wants a clean slate, and it wants to, as I say, remove all those that have been in power and replace them by others. Now, I think what is quite striking in that poll that you referred to was really how actually many of the younger generation don't believe in Britain, don't believe in their state, don't believe that their country has failed them, that the country doesn't regard them, that they are turning their back on their own state and on their community. And there is the division between the older generation and the younger one has become much starker. Now, why is this serious? But it's very serious when only 22% of your population in Britain, believe that Britain has an interest in them, believes in them in some way. When you only have 22%, that's a crisis. Mm-hmm. This is just a political problem.
It's not a problem, it's a crisis, yes.
It's
true.
A crisis. It's a deep crisis. And this is, again, there's a difference between the older generation, who is quite different from this, but the younger one. Now, it's not confined just to the Anglo-Saxons here, because of course the media that project this, TikTok and all of these media platforms, are as available here in Italy as they are in Britain, and certainly are affecting certainly the generation who are at school at the moment, who don't respect their parents, who are really becoming severed from the older generation. Now, we've seen this once before. We saw this in Russia in the 1840s, in the 1860s, when a generation became so radicalized against liberal parents that they ended up constructing nail bombs to throw into the cafes in St. Petersburg in order to watch the hated middle class writhe in their death agonies. I mean, it is a very serious, culture wars can become very serious if they are not managed. And at the moment, what you said is quite right. In Brussels, they think this is the way to keep a majority. It's the way to take the European project forward and to create, if you like, a European empire. So they're using it. They're using it against, if you like, traditional societies like that of Hungary or Poland or other East European societies. And they're using it internally against people who refuse, if you like, those that are not vaccinated. The other great divide is now the question about whether you're vaccinated or not. The press every day is complaining that those who are not vaccinated are the problem, are damaging their country. So we have, if you like, exclusionary ideology. The aim here is not just to be, if you like, to be critical of the people that don't accept the narrative expressed by Brussels and by the administration in Washington. It is to take them off the political table altogether, to remove them, make them, shame them, cancel them, remove them from politics, make them, if you like, completely boycotted.
Right. Allow us, Alastair, to stop now for a short break, and then afterwards we'll continue to talk more into this EU cultural war, but after the break. إذا فاصل قصير ونعود، لا تذهبوا بعيدا. أهلا بكم من جديد. Alastair Crooke, founder and director of Conflicts Forum. Welcome back, Alastair. Well, research from the Institute of Economic Affairs confirms Frank Lunz's findings that younger people, as you said also, Alastair, are deeply hostile to capitalism and hold positive views of socialist alternatives. And according to numbers, 67% say they would like to live under a socialist economic system, while 75% agree with the assertion that climate change is a specifically capitalist problem. 78% blame capitalism too for Britain's housing crisis. The IEA suggests its own findings should serve as a wake-up call to supporters of the market economy. Luntz reports that even the word capitalism itself has become a disaster. Do you think, Alastair, that when the pandemic pulls back and the economy opens, we will be returning to the old normal or not?
Absolutely not. It's changed. And this is really one of the important messages that I think the polling really revealed. This is fundamental. We are going to go through a complete transformation. This younger generation is quite different. I mean, it's widespread. You know, I don't want your viewers to get the idea that this is a tiny element. You know, perhaps 45% of Britain thinks that the country has failed it. It will be the same. It's the same here in Italy and other parts of Europe. It's a profound change that's going, and there's no normal to go back to now. What existed before the pandemic is no longer available afterwards. And what was striking was how many of them, nearly 80%, despise the CEOs and the business leaders, think they have failed them too. They don't think anything of their own political leadership. 80% rejected them in very forceful terms or did not endorse them. It's really a very profound shift that is taking place in Europe. At the moment, you don't see it because the whole of media is controlled by, if you like, mainstream media is controlled by liberal stations. And so we have a universal language going out, and we have what I call a narrative war, where if you say anything that is different to the standard line, the standard narrative, you get a missile fired at you, vaporize you, and say you're anti-Semitic, you are racist, you have some defect that means that you should be cancelled and never heard again. And so the big tech are then sort of amplifying this woke culture and supporting it. Right. And therefore it's very much more serious, this megaphone effect.
Yes, this is not only in Europe, so to say, Alastair. Observers note that the implosion of the social trust and now personal safety in the US following the, quote, defund the police campaign is radiating out across the globe. Is a way of life, a way of economics too, is it coming to an end?
Yes, it's come to an end. I think the economics, the system, the young people believe across America and parts of Europe that the system is so politically and economically rigged against them that they don't see light at the end of the tunnel. Their economic circumstances, their standard of living is going to decline. They are angry about that. And they are very, if you like, they are very disturbed by this prospect. So there's a great deal of anger and dissatisfaction, alienation amongst people because of this. When you see that they don't believe in their own leaders, they think they're just in politics to serve their own ends, to make money. At that sort of levels, again, you know, this is not just a problem. This is a real turning point, a crisis in society. And really the thing is that, you know, people have not noticed it sufficiently. It's not a matter of subject because many people feel liberal and that liberal values of tolerance and, if you like, or support for justice and racial equality are good values. But that's not the values that actually underlie wokeism. It's intolerant. And therefore this apparent tolerance turns into intolerance very quickly and very easily.
Allow me to talk now about something very extreme going on inside the US of A today, where an observer notes that Americans already have started to group and assembled together according to their ideological attachments. The governors of Florida and Texas represent one pole of the spectrum, with the governors of New York and California occupying the other. Americans are on the move, with Texas and Florida receiving the bulk of refugees from New York and California. Equally, some 100 plus CEOs and big hedge funds symbolically have taken their businesses to blue side, whilst other funds, as we know, have physically immigrated to red Florida or Texas. Media too, Alastair, has separated into distinct camps. Alastair, as a reader and as an observer, and as the US fractures, does civil strife become more likely?
You know, what you're talking about, what you just described, is the pulling apart of a society and its embedding into its tribal sections. So you have a blue tribe and a red tribe in the United States, about equal in size. And yes, what's going to happen? Well, as you know, there was a great deal of controversy over the presidential election in the United States. One portion of the population believed that there were problems with the way the election was run. The other side does not. But in 2022, the Americans are going to go back to voting again, and on issues which will decide the composition of the Senate and the Congress and the House. So that means the whole question of the whole program that is Biden's program, the liberal program, the major economic program that is afoot with massive expenditure is potentially at risk. The margins in the Senate are wafer thin. At any point, they can be lost, and with it, the blue program. Then what happens? The other side comes back. But will they go to the polls smoothly? Will the election be run? Will people doubt that the election is being fairly run in the United States? I think we can expect that to be the case, yes.
Well, Alastair Crooke, Director of Conflicts Forum, formerly a senior British diplomat and advisor to the EU Foreign Policy Chief, thank you very much for your in-depth vision and observations, Alastair. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.
Well, to read more of Alastair Crooke posts, do tune in to Al-Mayadeen English for an exclusive weekly comment. والشكر لكم مشاهدينا الكرام على طيب المتابعة. للتفاعل أكثر تابعونا على صفحات السوشيال ميديا، وحتى نلتقي من كل فريق عمل من الداخل من كل الميادين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.